Hi, and welcome back to the White Flag Podcast. The good news is the setup has changed a little bit, and in the future, I will try and do as many of these in person like this as I can. Um, so today, since Herman's already been on the pop podcast and shared quite a bit of his backstory, um, today the topic is just men's encounter and everything that it entails.
Yeah, so my name is Herman. I backstory for me, if you haven't listened to the other podcast, was I run Diesel Solutions or own Diesel, don't run it, but own Diesel Solutions in DS Performance. But the men's encounter, West Texas men's encounter, changed my life, and that's I think we might have that in the backstory there, but yeah, basically, I wanted to know where it came from, the history. I love history, I love politics. I want to know where it came from. I ended up visiting Kansas, and met Nolan over there.
Yeah,
It was a good time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you came at a pretty cool time of that encounter because the Western Kansas encounter really was evolving.
Gotcha.
Because there were three main churches who put that encounter on. One of them was Bible Christian. One of them was Cornerstone, and another one was actually a Baptist church in Cimarron. And over time, we had basically been becoming more spirit filled as it went on. And especially um, the one you went to was really a tipping point towards that a lot more. And we actually saw some truly miraculous things take place at that one that was awesome.
Yeah.
And after that, I had quite a few guys come up to me and start speaking to me that had previously been completely against the gifts. No, they're like speaking in tongues is demonic and all of that, And they began to ask me about it, and they say, "You do it, but I can tell it's good."
Right.
And I'm like, "Yeah, that's because we all have gifts, but you can choose to use them for evil or use them for good. And we each have gifts that we lean more towards. Like me, I lean a lot more towards tongues and discernment and also wisdom."
I think the one I struggle with the most is is discernment. Uh, I I think, or I should say, I believe that is one of my stronger gifts, but I guess you could say it's still in development phase because I tend to feel um, other people's moods,
Yeah.
and I believe it's something that is given by the Father as a gift to use, but how to use it, I don't know. I'm working on how to use that for good, for that matter. Because right now it's just like I said, I can feel somebody else's mood. Well, it's not so much I can feel it. I get it as my own, and it's difficult to discern whether it's mine or somebody else's.
Yeah.
So, but if it's that easy to and it's not whether I want to or don't want to. It's it happens,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't really have a way to make use of it yet. But I'm looking into that. One thing I really liked about, especially this last encounter, East Texas encounter, the one that White Flag set up, which Nolan is the founder of, prayer. And I really feel that encounter got me ready for the revelation I had in California on prayer, which since then me and my wife both have seen just miraculous things happen. Which I think even this week, I had lunch today with Raymond Thiessen here. He owns Tic Tac, the Tic Tac Designs, and what we talked about how to run a business, the way he does it. he showed me a little bit the inside workings on how he does it, and it makes sense how it'd be easier to keep a good profit and loss, things like that. And I like it. So I believe that is an answer to a question, which goes back to prayer. We've Mondays we've had prayer, about half an hour to an hour prayer, get together and kind of pray about what we want to see for the week. And I think today, which we had that today because I wasn't here Monday, and we had that today, and I think this lunch meeting overall was an answer to that. But anyway, what I was going on with that was the East Texas Encounter was just, as far as prayer, was amazing. I've always resisted going into the prayer room, what we call now the war room, because I felt completely uncomfortable there. And with the way it happened here, and it wasn't my doing, it was you, and who else was there the first time? It was you, and I forget who else was there. There was a few other guys in there. And it was an atmosphere, really, because I believe you can say that you want it to be one way or the other, open, comfortable, but that still is not going to change. The atmosphere is not going to be that way unless whoever, I guess, the spiritual dominating person, I guess, for lack of better words, brings that environment in there. You're not going to feel it. And that's what I felt there. Like there was this, the environment was so comfortable where instead of thinking about, like, what's this guy going to think about what I pray, or I can keep up with that prayer, like he's so much better at pray. There was none of that. It was just talking to the Father. And also I believe a big part of that was I don't know, what's Friday evening or Saturday evening when Isaac and Aaron had a conversation about the image that we have of a father is the same image we project onto God the Father, and it's distorted. Even the best father will not keep up, because the Bible talks about that. You that are evil wouldn't give your son, wouldn't give your kids a snake if you asked for a fish, or a rock if you asked for bread. How much more the Father in heaven? So that already contrasts how much better the Father is than we could ever live up to be. So even if we grew up in a home, which I grew up in a Christian home, the best dad you could ever have is not going to measure up. And I think we really need to learn to not project that to the Father in heaven. And that's really like I said, I've always resisted going there because I felt so out of place. Mm-hmm. But the East Texas Encounter, that prayer room was just awesome.
Yeah.
And not just that, I've always resisted praying as well. I'd pray for myself, but I don't know if I really had a big expectation of it being answered. And I can't say that that changed so much, even with the revelation I had of prayer that I had in California. My perspective of it didn't change that much, that I expected a lot more out of my prayer than it did before. But it did.
Yeah.
I've seen amazing things happen. Like I said, both me and my wife have seen amazing things happening. And like I said, even with what's happening with the business this week, I think is part of that prayer being answered. And I really believe it goes back to, do we have to have our own revelation? It might look different than yours. It might look different than anybody else's. But we have to, instead of imitating what somebody teaches us, we need to find our own. Mm-hmm. Because if our spirits, I believe our spirits are as different, because we all have a spirit man inside us. And if their spirit man is as different as what we look like, and out of all the people that live, all that have ever lived, and will ever live, none will be exactly the same, even identical twins. They might look alike, but they will not be the same. The demeanor, everything will be different. So if our spirit man is that different, I think we need to listen to other people's testimony, revelation, whatever. And I think a lot of times that can awaken our own revelation, our own experience, and get closer with the Father.
No, yeah. And this is a little controversial topic, but it's about the Lord's Prayer. And a lot of people Mr. Lord.
Multiple.
It's a possessive phrase.
Gotcha.
It's the Lord's prayer. It's not supposed to be yours exactly. No, because the disciples said to Christ, show us how to pray.
Right.
No, and you've been talking about that, and out of that came the Lord's Prayer. And I hear people all the time say, oh, well, I should say the exact same prayer all the time. And I'm thinking, well, he was showing you how to do a thing. No, it's like when I do a job and I teach a new guy to do the job that I'm doing. I show him the principle.
Like, this is Nolan's job.
Yeah.
But once he teaches, it'd be his job.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
And he, no matter what, is not going to ever do exactly how I am because he's a different person.
Yeah.
No, he's unique in his own way. And I don't even talk to different people the same way.
Right.
No, because you know me a lot more than a stranger does.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have to kind of gauge in a conversation what his level of understanding will be.
Exactly. And the cool thing is when you pray to God, you're talking to God. And God knows everything.
Right.
So it's a cool thing because you can go to him and you can just talk.
Don't explain yourself. Yeah, you don't have to explain yourself. You just...
Exactly.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
And so I'm like, that's the difference between East Texas and a lot of the other encounters I've been to, because they know you've got a specific way that you talk to God. No, it's your tongue that is yours, not mine, is yours. And you should feel free to use that. No, because I know the spirit in you is not bad.
Right.
Now, if I knew it was bad, I'd be like, I don't know about that. But I know the spirit in you is good. I know the fruits of your life are good.
Right, because we know each other.
So why would I hold you back from pushing to God?
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I had a point in there. Oh, yeah, what you said about, like when you teach someone, you teach him the way you do it, which is, you could say, this is Nolan's way of doing it, just like you said, Lord, this is the Lord's Prayer, this is the Lord's way of doing it, kind of. I think what happens so often in churches is what is preaching, and I don't think it's so much, and this is an evolving theory, this is something that I've come up with recently, and it's been really heavy on me, and I don't think it's a preacher's fault so much. I think it's a culture in the church, not in a specific church. It seems like it's every church, or most of them anyway, where the people that listen to a message, they will try to imitate it. And that's what you were talking about earlier. When you teach somebody Nolan's work and they do it exactly, they imitate you the way you do it, they will never be as good as you are, never be as fast, never be as efficient. Yet if they do it the way they want to, there's a good chance that they could be more efficient. And I think that's in the body of Christ, that's what we've been missing. We imitate the preacher's either his messages, his revelations, whatever he teaches on, imitate him instead of finding our own. And that's really even with what we've been doing here on Tuesdays. We've been trying to learn how do we share it with people and encourage them to find their own way. Find the Father, not like Moses, like where all the people talked to Moses and Moses talked to God. I mean, Jesus died for us, and when he died for us, we all got access to him very personally.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a beautiful thing. I think some of that might also be a matter of being comfortable with that. because I think for me it was some of that might have been just thinking back now. Some of that why I was projecting my own father onto God the Father was unworthiness.
Yeah.
The true forgiveness. A pastor said, he said, once you realize the way the Father forgives, you can have a different life. And the example he made, he said, the way you will know, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around this, but the way you will know that you have learned or understand forgiving the way the Father does is if something from the past walks into your life and you're not ashamed about it. That is a hard subject. I've struggled with pornography for, better part of my married life. It wasn't there before. I don't know why. Yeah. And I got to say, if that walks into my life, somebody, it would catch me off guard. I have a harder time forgiving myself than he does me. That's basically what it comes down to. That's hard to even say and then realize it, but it's true.
It is true. Well, and it's one of those things, the cool thing about men's encounter is part of the reason why the testimonies are so powerful is because you see the path that a guy was going down in his life, and then you see the encounter point. And in a lot of people's lives, the encounter point is when you break. No, it's when something in your life just gives. And then God has actually got room to come in and do change. And when men see that, for me, when I was sitting down in that seat, I'm like, I never thought I had a choice. No, because I'm like, everything in my life had happened to me, and I'm like, I never thought that I got the choice that I could choose good, that I could choose better than what I was doing yesterday.
Gotcha. That's an interesting subject, actually.
Yeah, and so when I got that encounter from those men speaking, and I saw that they made the choice that, yeah, so the situation was bad, but they chose to begin to get better every day and small steps. No, it's not just one big whoosh at a time. It's just a step. And I had been doing that a long time, but a lot of times I was taking too big of a step. And I'm like, I need to be there, and I'm here, but I need to be there, and I wasn't doing the steps to get there. And when I got to men's encounter, and they said, it's okay that your past is broken.
That's a hard one.
No. But in order for things to start to get better, you need to start taking steps out of it, and you need to start walking towards that. Not leaping, walking.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when you leap or you run fast, you don't look at the road in front of you, and what do? You trip and you fall and you get off the path.
Yeah. And
well, if you're walking, you're very intentional, you will get there.
That, and I think so. For me, what was this? I guess it started at a men's encounter, but what has happened since then is that I always thought being good was something you force yourself to do. It's just that's what you're called to. You when you're a Christian, which I wanted to be, you're called to be good. But it's not really biblical, because Jesus says a bad tree will not bear good fruit. No. And so therefore I I really don't know how one would find that per se, but I guess just a desire. For me, it was an men's encounter. Because for me, men's encounter did exactly what the title says. It gave me an encounter with Christ.
Yeah.
I've cried so much that weekend, and I was taught not to cry. I cried so much that weekend, and I enjoyed it. I held it back till I couldn't anymore, and I just, you know what, I've had enough. I'll just let it go. But since then, there's a joy in doing good. There's for me, I think a lot of it started. Now it's mainly financially. I've given a lot. I will help, but because I mean most people have their basic needs met nowadays in the U.S., especially the community I live in. So the easiest way for me to give or to help someone is financially. So we've done that for most now. But where it started was I would get like a pressure on my chest when I'd see somebody beside the road and I get this pressure on my chest. And I remember one of the first ones. Me and my boys were coming back from Austin from Raptor X. We went to play over there with the Raptor, and we were on this little bitty road behind a whole bunch of cars, and we finally get it's a little bit. It's a windy road. You can't pass anywhere. It's just too many. If it was one car, it would be doable, but there's too many cars. Couldn't pass anywhere. Finally got to pass them, and I just put some distance between me and them, and I seen this car. It was a Dodge pickup and an RV sitting beside the road. Had the wheel already off, and the spare was sitting beside it, and I had this pressure on my chest. I'm like, there's nothing that this guy needs from me. He obviously has the tools because he took the wheel off. He has the new spare wheel right there. There is nothing for me to do there. And I just passed him, and I don't want to go back. But, which I guess the kind of backstory, and that would also be, I asked God to show me. Like, show me how to do good, basically. And there was not the first time I felt it. I think it was the first time I felt it strongly enough, and just wouldn't. I believe if I would have kept going, it would have gone away.
Yeah.
And maybe not forever. It would have come back because I believe it probably just gets weaker, but it would have come back. But I finally said, you know what? I'll turn around. I've desired something like this, and I wasn't even sure if it was right. It was just kind of, I think this is the Holy Spirit, but I don't know. And because I had a desire for such a long time to want to be, I guess, some kind of leading in my life on how to do better spiritually, I finally said, you know what, I'll turn around. So we turned around, went over there. Turns out their spare tire didn't fit because there was like a 1x2 or a 2x4 or something. It was a piece of wood that was screwed on there, and they couldn't get it off, and the tire was rubbing against it. Well, I had a tire iron or a big pry bar in the back of my truck. Went and got the pry bar, pried it out, and it was ready to go. So they did need help.
Yeah.
In my mental, with what I could gather in my mind, I didn't see there was anything they needed, but there was something that I didn't know that the Spirit did, and we had a great conversation.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah.
And then my truck, I just gotten it back a week. It was 2 weeks before this happened. I'm on my way to Amarillo through Hereford, and there's a roadside park between Hereford and Amarillo. And I went past it. This is my dually when I just bought it. It was very windy outside, and I went past there, and same thing. I seen the guy had his car already on the jack, had the front tire off, and I felt this pressure, but I was in a hurry. I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's not that important. So I kept going. No, it kind of stayed there. Like, it wasn't just one of those, it came and went. It stayed. So then I knew it was probably Holy Spirit. So I turn around and go over there. I back my brand new truck back up to this little Beetle, red Beetle. And as I opened the door, I couldn't hold it, and the wind just yanked it open. It was 90 degrees. Bent. I mean, the fender is bent. My door was bent. I had to yank it back and shut it down. And as I turned around, this guy he felt bad. Here's his new truck trying to help me out, and then he breaks his own truck. I could see what he was thinking. But, which another thing, I think, when I went to my brother-in-law, and he's like, how did you feel? I said, I really didn't feel anything. He said, that's impossible. You just bought this truck. It is a really nice truck. How can you not feel? I said, well, if it breaks, we'll just buy another one. Like, it's not a big deal. Later on, and he said, there's got to be the Holy Spirit protecting you from it. There's no other way. Maybe. I can't say because I just don't feel I don't feel remorse over it. I don't. But what happened out of that, I walked over there, and turns out he had busted his oil pan.
Oh, wow.
And his 94-year-old mother was in the car, and it was cold. It was in February. So it was cold enough, he said, if he would have stayed the night since the car doesn't run, she would have died. Because she had bronchitis. So because of her illness, and as weak as she was and as old, she would not have made it through the night. And it was already getting dark. And so I took him to Amarillo. That guy, even at that, when we got there, he wanted to give me a piece of cheese. And I said, look, man, I do okay financially. I don't need this. Why don't you keep it? He said, no, that's the only way I can pay you back. It's the only thing I can give you. Please take it. I was also very difficult. I mean, I later on learned through somebody else, like you shouldn't take somebody else's blessing. To him, that piece of cheese meant a lot. To me, I mean, I could afford it. I mean, most of the people around here, it wasn't that expensive, but to him, it was something he needed.
Mm-hmm.
And he was willing to give it up as a show of gratitude, something that was important to him.
Yeah.
And it was a learning experience, but that was kind of the beginning for me to, and since then it's gone away, and I believe the reason why it's gone away, like I haven't had the pressure on my chest in a long time, and I think it's more because I tend to stop anyway, and he knows, Father, Spirit knows I'm going to stop if I see a problem. We did that on the way to Corpus. It was pouring down rain, and this guy had stuck, it was an older F-150, somebody ran off the road and got stuck in one of those bridges. Couldn't get out. Maybe his four-wheel drive wasn't working. I don't know. It was a four-wheel drive, but he didn't have it on. And oddly enough, I had my tractor in the back of my trailer. So I unloaded the tractor, pulled him out, and then his tire was flat. So I helped him change the tire, and off he went. So, and I don't know how. He was an older gentleman. And he said, "Oh man, I'm already late for work." We helped him out. Where I was going with that is, there is joy in doing good.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah.
And that's the fruit of the tree. Mm-hmm. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit. And that's, like I said, when I started, I didn't know how to be good. It's like that skit guys. Just, I made you good. Just be good. It's not hard. But I think we can have outside influences wake up the evil side of us, the fallen side of our spirit. And I guess a good example would be that which dog do you feed? The good one or the bad one? Whichever one you feed will get stronger.
No, yeah.
And I think when I started, it was just a matter of kind of paying attention, or maybe the way I asked the Spirit, like, help me, show me where to do good.
Mm-hmm.
And as that progressed, now it's a normal thing. I enjoy it. It's I don't have to have a big sign somewhere. Talking about signs, I seen a sign. I think it's in Amarillo somewhere. There's a sign says, you prayed for God to send you a sign. Here's a sign. Give your life to Jesus.
Yep. Yep.
Here's your sign.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. And, you speaking about all this, the biggest part of encounter is not encounter itself. It's after.
This is true.
And I talk to guys all the time, and I'm like, the most important part of all this is when you hit that front door and you walk into your own home.
Amen.
And they're like, what? And I'm like, as soon as you open that door, that life that you were living, those scars that you made, all of that led you to this encounter will be there when you open that door.
Waiting, yeah.
And you have got to be the change. And discipleship after the encounter is a very tough thing, because I get guys, they get set on fire, they get home, and it just gets quenched. And then they start to fall back into their lives. And me, when I went to my first encounter, a lot of the people don't know this about me, but I love music. Like, I love it. I grew up listening to music every day, and I got convicted a lot about it. And I began to read and learn more in the Bible, and one thing that came up was the devil, Satan, Lucifer, when he was in heaven, he was beautiful, and he made beautiful music.
Yeah, dude.
So, in today's world, music doesn't hold power. It can change your mood. It can do a lot of stuff. And they did a study where they took a plant, and they had the plant in a room, well, hard rock, well, what's that playing? Rap, and then classical. Which plant did the best?
Classical, yeah, I've heard an example.
Yeah. And so I'm like, if I got that in my brain all the time,
yeah, it's gonna rot the brain.
Yeah, well, what's that doing to my mind if it does that to that plant?
Yeah, it's a living being, just like we are. Well,
Yeah.
and I think you make a very good point of the scars in your regular life hitting you when you get back home. I didn't have it so much coming back from the men's encounter. And there's another one I was thinking, I don't know why that doesn't do the same for everyone. For me, it gave me a hunger that I could, and it's exactly what I've been asking for. I wanted a hunger that I couldn't quench, and I found it there.
Mm-hmm.
And but I just know in other areas there have been things when we go to some kind of event or a like the Heaven in Business, whether it's business or it's healing or whatever. We go to some kind of event, and there's things I'll write down in my book, like this is something I want to pursue when I get back. As soon as we leave, I'm like, man, I really don't feel that importance like I did when I was there.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, I remember the first time it happened. I don't remember what it was about, but I remember the first time it happened, like, you get out of there and you're like, man, when I was sitting there, I found this really be important. This would be really good in my life to implement it. And you leave and you're like, man, nah, maybe not. We'll forget about it. And then you do.
Yeah.
But the Bible, even that, Jesus talks about it. It's the sower and the seed.
Mm-hmm.
He said some of it fell on, this is, he said some of it fell on shallow ground. And as soon as the weeds came up, which was the worries of the world, it choked out the good seed. There's a part of that I had never considered, and I forget who mentioned it. He said, do you realize the difference of the ground that gave 60, 30, 60, or 100, and where there were those rocks, which rocks is basically just be careful, like you need, I guess you would need a heart change. If you have a heart that's hardened like a rock, Jesus will have to change it first. But even after he changes it, it can be shallow ground. But unless you work it, that's when he said, how do you figure? Farmers, what did they do to get 100% out of their crop? They work the ground. It has to be softened. It has to be worked. There's fertilizer that gets put in there. There's all kinds of things that gets put in there for the crop to be healthy and grow and produce as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I think that's, even today, like today, when I had the lunch with Raymond, the things that he showed me, they really made sense to me. They looked very important, and not just that. I felt they were an answer to the prayer that we had for the business, and this is one of those things I thought about. I do not want to leave here and think, man, it seemed more important when I was there. Now that I'm gone, I was not there, and it hasn't. I am as excited about it as when I left. But I think all that is just part of working the ground, which is my heart. And that seed, it fell on good ground, and it's going to produce fruit. It's 6 hours ago that we planted it, basically, but it will produce good fruit. I know it will because I'm very excited about it.
Yep. And one thing that I struggle with in discipleship is that exact same thing, because I was sitting down with the other guy, and I'm like, whenever I discipleship and I teach a guy, my goal is for you to grow past me, for you to literally become closer to God than I am.
Yeah.
No, that's my goal when I do this. And I'm like, the biggest challenge of that is getting your mind to turn around. And he goes, what? And I'm like, the thing is until your mind, let's like you said, it's like that ground that gets watered and soft often, so when the seeds get planted, that they can grow good.
Yeah.
That's one of those things that I struggle with so much, because we get so much junk in our minds that it makes our minds as hard as a rock. No, it's like, this is what I know and that is it. No. And no, that isn't true. No. And I'm like, do you know what God cares very little about? And he says, what? I'm like, your perceptions. God cares very little about what you perceive, because you can only see a tiny fraction of a dot to what God can see.
Yeah, especially since our time is linear. His is not.
Yeah. And so you may perceive something, but you can't fully perceive it.
Right, because you had the beginning of an understanding, not the full understanding. You don't have the full picture. Makes sense.
And so we are bound by our flesh.
You don't think he, I don't know, maybe this is just my naivete speaking, but you don't think he lets us kind of go with it?
Oh, yeah, of course. No.
He knows better, but I just know, like, some of the things I've been doing with my kids, I guess really where this sunk in was I bought a kit, Legno Technica kit, a Lego car.
Yeah.
And Joshua, I love those things. Joshua helped me put together a big part of that, and I really enjoyed it. But after a few hours of me and him there working there, because I wanted him to do it, and me just kind of oversee it, I realized I constantly, when he would put a part on wrong, I would correct him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, the kid is never going to learn this way. I find it, and it was the hardest thing.
No,
for me to just let him screw it up, and then he'd be a couple pages forward, and like, you sit there, you can already see what's going to happen, but he needs to do that himself. Mess it up, go back, and redo it, so he can learn to do it better next time. It is the hardest thing for a parent, which, like the Bible says, you that are evil, which I don't know how to be a parent. I'm learning it. The father is a perfect father.
Yeah.
So that's, which to me, I love challenges. And one of the beautiful things of, I really project the way I view the father, the way I look at my children, the way I would like them to learn. And there's so many questions still left, but I believe, well, the Bible says that he made us in his image. We call him father. I am a father to my children. And I think if it's tough for me to see my kids screw it all up, it's got to be for him as well. But
oh yeah,
he'll let you do it anyway.
Well, what's and the thing is you literally just explained in simpler terms what men's encounter is. Now, because we go in there, we give all testimonies how we put the wrong part on the car.
Yeah.
And then we tried it and tried it and tried it, and it didn't work. And then it broke the car. And then we had to stop and go, maybe I'm not putting this together right. And so we turned and did another thing that worked. No, it's the exact same thing. No, except it's bigger consequences.
Yeah,
You know.
detrimental consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah, which, man, that's yeah, that's true. Which, man, I just had a train of thought and it's gone. It'll come back to me.
Yeah. But in the process of getting somebody's mind to turn around, it's like I've heard tons of people tell me they're like, I just have issues opening up the Bible and reading it and doing all that, and I'm like, what are you holding in your hands? And they say, a book. And I'm like, no, it's not a book. And I said, you are holding in your hand the Spirit, God, and Christ, all in one, is right there in your hands. That's a living, breathing being that you've got there. No. And you need to stop viewing it as a book a man wrote. And
Spirit inspired.
And as it being the same as me sitting in this chair and speaking to you.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, what I was thinking about earlier, I don't know how popular this is or how much it's preached, but I know me growing up, I was taught a lot that we can't go by our feelings, and literally that's the only thing I've got guiding me, my feelings.
Yeah.
And and I'm not saying that they're all right, and
no.
I think the reason is you go back to the Bible. The Bible is gives you a very basic, fairly basic idea of who the Father is, what he does, what he likes, what you should look like. There's all the New Testament, the apostles. And I think for me anyway, when my feelings line up with that, which I know what it says in there. I grew up in a church, so I know what it says. So if my feelings line up with that, I can trust them.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason why I'm here, the reason why I've learned what I've learned, and I enjoy my life so much, is I told my wife the other day, I said, the reason why I'm even here is because I have no self-control. Well, little self-control. Everything I was taught did not work. So I started doing what I guess you could say my spirit man, like I am still fairly fresh in it, what the spirit man hungers for. And it might be also one of those things that may be a bit controversial. I don't read my Bible regularly. When I do pick it up, I pick it up to study. And it's usually in a setting like this, or if like the post encounters we have, we have the pre-encounters, which is basically server training. The first one for West Texas encounter I made, and then the rest of them I couldn't make. I wasn't here. But the first one I made, and I had been I wouldn't say straight up depression, but I've been in a depressive state for over a month, almost 2 months. Couldn't figure out a way out of it. And we call him Father Jr. John Peters Jr. or John Peters, Father Jr. I have it in my book exactly what he spoke on. It was Romans, renew your mind.
Yeah,
it was what he spoke on, and that there was I looked it up on my phone and I started reading it in the Passion Translation, because what I like to do is the Passion Translation with the New American Standard. I like those two. The New American Standard is easy for me to read, and it's still a Bible. It's not a translation, because the Passion Translation is more of a translation of a Bible.
Yeah,
they don't really call it a Bible because of the way it's written, but it's very good to study. And I love, as far as basic Bibles, I love the New American Standard. I'll read that and then cross it with the Passion, and between those two, and it wasn't even like, right there. Whatever came to mind, I take my book with me every time I go into I go to church or I go. Well, I mean, here we're talking, but if I'd be listening, somebody might bring up a Bible verse. I look it up, and my mind, the Spirit will start downloading to my mind, and I'll start writing it down. That's how I got out of it. I walked out and I was like, that's one of the best server trainings we've ever had, because maybe it was just exactly for me. I don't know, but it worked. It worked. It's alive. The word is alive because
Oh yeah.
it speaks to the spirit, man. But
Yeah.
I've tried to read it regularly. I just don't retain much of it. I more when I drive, I keep a Bible in there. If I don't have a Bible, it's obviously phone always has all the Bibles. But I keep that little book, and I will pull over if something comes to mind, or I'll be listening to either a message or a song, and something will come to mind, a verse. And I don't know where they are, but I can usually quote Bible verses, and like something like that will come to mind. I'll Google it, where it's at, find it, pull over, study it, make some notes. And that's really where I've learned. But that was the desire I had. And like I said, some of the stuff I was taught, you read your Bible on a daily basis. And I think it's a good thing. I think my wife does it. It works great for her.
Yeah.
She gets up about 4 o'clock and she studies the Bible for an hour, hour and a half, sometimes even longer, and then goes to her workout. But no matter what time I get up, even if I take the time, it really doesn't benefit me much.
Yeah.
Except for which I guess, even saying that, when I do have something come up in my mind, I then do need to take the time to go read it, because that's when the Spirit is ready to speak.
Yeah. But there's a thing that I think a lot of people miss. And I'm like, in the Bible, when you read about all of these characters in the Bible, how much time did they spend reading it?
They wrote it, yeah, that's a good point.
No, it's like, when you go back to Elijah and back to Abraham, and these men, they had nothing.
No, they didn't.
No.
They had prophets every now and then.
Yeah.
Once, twice in a lifetime or something.
They just knew that there was a God, and they just went out and they spoke to him and said, hey, no. And they did as he told them to do.
And that's what's that say about us? Because we now have direct communication with him. Back then, it wasn't like that. The Father hadn't died. I mean, Jesus hadn't died.
Yeah.
So they were looking forward to a Savior.
Yeah.
We have proof of one, and I don't know, there's something in there somewhere.
Well, and also the thing you got to realize is these men were ones that were in thousands at the time. And they, quite a few times, were the only ones. No, it's like you talk about the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. I love that story. There's so much packed into it. And it really shows the degradation of a society.
Right.
And
nothing new under the sun.
Yep. And lots of the people, they view Sodom and Gomorrah as this immoral place, and one man got saved. And what a lot of people don't realize is how many good men did Abraham talk God down to, that if we're in the city, that the city would be saved. One. Right?
I thought it was 1 down to 5, wasn't it? Because one, they would save it, but one was left. I don't remember exactly. We could probably look that up.
Yeah. But the angels themselves came to Lot and said, leave the city because God's going to destroy it.
Yeah. Whatever Abraham did talk him down to, there was not that left. Is that what you're talking about?
And Lot was not a good man.
I see what you're saying.
The angels said, leave, and they also told him, don't look back and just leave. No. Because what did Lot do? So with sin, the people came to have relations with the angels. Lot goes, oh, I'll give you my daughter.
Yeah, virgin daughter.
Yeah, to this whole crowd. And I'm thinking, me as a dad, I would never do that. I would go out there myself before I would send her out there.
Yeah.
No, that's not a good man.
This is true.
And so those angels saved him. No, and they had that choice. And angels have a choice like we do. And I think a lot of people miss that in the Bible a lot, because they oftentimes think of the archangel Michael and of the angels that do all the good stuff. But there's also fallen angels, and they made a choice to go against God. And there were several different incursions of angels that went against God. There was the original ones that fell with Lucifer in the beginning.
Right.
And then after World there were more, and they were called the Watchers, and then they fell.
Right, because they seen that the women of man were good to lay with. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they came down and they bore to them children. So angels have a choice.
Evidently.
And so do we.
Right.
No. And so that story is cool because it shows you that piece of it. And when Lot leaves, what happens after he leaves?
Fire rains down.
Yeah. And then what does Lot's wife do?
Oh, yeah, she turns around.
And gets turned into salt.
Yes.
And salt is what? It's pure. Salt purifies things. So she turned and she got purified.
That's very interesting. I've never thought about it that way. That's very interesting. I'll have to think about that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, I think what you said the other day about if you feel something evil attached to you,
Mm-hmm.
you can go shower it off. I believe that's a big part of that is, well, first of all, it was a year somebody said it can be because of just like Peter's sweatband healed people. It wasn't a sweatband, it was belief in it. But I think that might be part of it. So you can do something physically to where there's something tangible that you can point to or do to change that. But also I think because of water is life,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a big part of why, because it has worked for me. I know when you said it in passing. I don't think you even thought about it. but
No.
But it stuck to me. It stuck to my spirit, man. It stood out for me. And one day when I felt like crap all day, couldn't get myself to work comfortably. Like my mind when it is good, I enjoy it. Like the mind that I've been given, man, I wish half the people, I wish everybody that knows me could live in it sometimes because it is fun. I am curious, and maybe for some people they could not live with it because it's got no self-control or very little of it. But I love the curiosity that my mind has, and that's what I got back just by showering.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. It's such a simple deed that can do.
Yeah. But water is cleansing.
Right. It's life.
No. And God did what to Sodom and Gomorrah? He cleansed it.
I guess fire does it too.
What sobbed it out? Yeah. And what is the spirit akin to? Fire.
Yeah.
No. So the closer to the spirit you become, the more pure you have to become to get closer to the spirit.
Right. You don't think that's kind of a natural interaction that happens?
Yeah.
Yeah. We get purified because I think there's a desire. Mm-hmm. I think once you truly catch an encounter, whether it's at the encounter, men's encounter, or somewhere else, wherever each person finds it. I think once you get it, there is a desire to just do better every day, and it's there's that, but every day is a good day, or can be. I mean, not like I said, the time that I spent, which was kind of in a depressive state, they're not so good. But they're still good days, but they're hard. They were very hard for me because I missed my mind when it was fresh and it was curious and it's very active. So I missed that, but I think even in that, I don't know what that looked like. Even in that, there's a teaching. I had somebody come up to me, and I don't know exactly what he was talking about. I think I know. I had somebody come up to me at the Kingdom Business Summit, and I had met him the day before. I'd seen him the day before in there, but the second day we sat on the same table. So since we were on the same table, we did a small prophecy session between us to kind of get ready, because we were going to prophesy over one of the business owners from Reading. We're going to come in the next day. They weren't going to tell us who they are. They basically tell us a name, but not what their business is, what they do, nothing, just that they have a business. That way we don't have outside influence for the prophecy. We'll rely on spirit guidance. And after we did that practice run the first day, afterwards, he's a big guy. He came to me and he said, I have a word for you. And I said, okay. I love that. And he didn't even know what I did. He said, you're very good at what you do, aren't you? I said, yeah. Like, you're exceptional in your field. And I said, yes, I am. But you have, I don't know if I can do this without just starting to cry here, but he said you have an area of your life that's very frustrating to you. And I said, yes, I do. And he said, God wants you to know he's there with you. And I believe it is the fight in my pornography that I've had. I can't make sense of it. It from everything I've been taught, maybe that's what's the problem. But everything I've been taught, I don't see how that could be possible. But as I walk through it, one day I'll know. I believe the reason why it's been so rough is because there's I mean, me and Isaac have talked about it, that there's a learning. There's a learning. The Father's trying to teach. For him, it's something different than he's dealing with. But for me, I think he's trying to teach me, and I'm sure we're not the only ones. Like, he's my best friend. That's why we talk about these things. But I think the Father is trying. How, I don't know, because one of the things I've asked a lot too is I've heard of so many testimonies of people. They will either, right where they stand, they will get freed from things, drug addiction, where they don't even have they don't come down from that. There's nothing. There's no hangover or whatever you call it when you come down from drugs. There's withdrawals. Yeah. There's no withdrawals. There's nothing. No matter what they did, they might have been on meth, hooked on meth for years. It just cuts off, and there's no desire anymore. Everything is gone, set free. Galatians 5:1. It's for freedom that you've been set free, and he can do that. I've heard that so many times, and I have sat and cried sometimes, wondering why he hasn't done it for me. But there's got to be a purpose in it. Once I know, I'll share it.
Yeah,
that's all I know how to do.
Yeah, and I get this conversation quite a bit with guys because they ask me, well, if God is working out everything for my good, then why doesn't he deliver me from this? And I said, do you know Paul? No. He was a great guy, when he encountered Christ, and he lived his whole life, and he had what was akin in the Bible to saying was a thorn in his side. And he asked God to take it, and God said, no, it won't.
Yeah, let my grace be enough for you.
Yeah, and so I've known great men who have struggled with things and are absolutely ashamed of it, and I'm like, that could also be part of why you're still struggling, is because you're ashamed.
I think that is a very, very solid point, that you are ashamed, because the pastor that talked about this, once you realize how God forgives and it becomes real to you, that's when you'll be set. That you'll find a freedom you've never had before. And I could see that, because the example that somebody made is, he said, if whatever you look at in binoculars will be a lot bigger than real life.
Yeah.
And if you constantly looking at your problem, guess what? It'll get a lot bigger than it should. And that's been something, like, when I was, because I know there's, like, so as far as, I don't know, I think we've talked about this before, the pornography problem, but even if it's not pornography, that, like, you can put someone said put a filter in your phone. Well, how are you going to put one between your ears? There's lusting. It ain't no better.
No,
It's the same thing. So you can't put a filter there. And I am looking for Galatians 5:1, freedom, straight up, because he can do it. He's done it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that should be the goal. It's just like alcohol. It's a very controversial subject, because most people say you should never drink. That's like, especially in our culture.
Yeah.
You should never have one drink. Well, and the way I look at it is, if you should never have one drink, if you're not an alcoholic and you've been set free from alcoholism, then you can have a drink if you choose to. You don't have to if you don't want to. But it's just like sex. Because pornography is so bad, are you never supposed to have sex? It's the same thing. No. To me, it looks like they're two parts of the same thing, because two faces of the same coin, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Because pornography is evil. It destroys marriages. But
Mm-hmm.
it's not just pornography. It's lusting. It's whatever that entails. And so does alcohol. The only difference is alcohol and drugs are so much more visible. The consequences of it are physically a lot more taxing, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Than pornography. But we've also seen, me and my wife have talked about this a lot, because she knows exactly what I go through. We've talked about it quite a bit. And what the big problem usually is between the two is usually the women will deal with self-esteem issues. And then because he has a, they're both sinful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're both wrong. Because, and I'm not making excuses for the guy looking at pornography, but the thing is, if the wife or the woman, or if you're married, girlfriend, whatever it is, if you can find peace with the way you look, it will not affect you as much. And I'm not making an excuse for boyfriend or husband to look at pornography, but that's what destroys it. The devil has it on both sides.
Yeah.
The wife feels like, because me and wife had this conversation. Marcy's like, well, I feel like you look at that because I'm not good enough for you. And I said, Marcy, look, you have no idea what I would give to get rid of this. I am freaking tired of it. And I can't wait to never, ever have that problem again. I don't. And it's never because that you're not enough. I mean, I'm not saying there might be some places, some men that feel that way, but I think that's, especially in the Christian circle, that's not the case.
Yeah.
Most of us want to just be done with it already.
Yeah.
But then you have the other side of that, which is, like I said, the wife doesn't feel like she's good enough. And because it's such an embarrassing subject, we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And between husband and wife, and therefore it just festers like a wound that never heals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it breaks marriages apart, and I guess maybe even boyfriend, girlfriend, when dating time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's one of those things is it goes back to the Leviathan in the Bible. It says, "No man can overcome it." No, and you need to start applying that to your life. No. I struggled with depression so bad, and I struggled with self-worth so bad that I didn't even think I was worthy of the air that I was breathing.
Yikes.
That was bad. And I get asked, how are you so not ashamed to tell me that you got so down you tried to take your own life. No. And I said, I don't live there anymore.
Yeah.
No.
So old me.
That man is dead. No. Yeah. He died there. I'm not that. No. I've been renewed and made new.
Yeah. Every day.
Yeah. And so why would I be ashamed to share something that I'm not?
Yeah, so something that where I was going with my whole pornography and realizing, like, when you constantly keep your mind on it, that it becomes bigger. There was a time, this is quite a while ago, but there was a time where I couldn't overcome it. So instead of sitting and feeling bad about it and wondering, like, all the consequences it's going to have for me personally, I decided not to. I decided... right after it was done, like I would have my conversation with the Father. Look, I don't want to do this anymore. Help me, and I'd leave it there. I would not think about it anymore. Yeah. Until it happened again, and then would have that same conversation. Look, me and the Father will have this conversation, and this is exactly where it'll stay. And it seemed like that's where I overcame it for the longest time. I mean, it's been a lot less of a problem since then.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
cool. Well, this has been an awesome time. We're going to wrap up here pretty quickly, and I just what's something to say. You know, the cool thing about this podcast is I feel like it can be an extension of Men's Encounter in a way, because it's one thing for me to get up there and to speak to you for 3 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
And try to preface what God's done in my life in that time. No. And on this, it's prolonged and it's out there, and you can really get into the details of it. No. And the constant evolvement of life. No. Because it's not a set in stone thing. Right. No. And that's what's so cool about God, is that all things that are prophecy that God has said that will happen, those things are set in stone. Those things will come to pass. But your life is not set in stone. God does have a plan for your life, but you get to choose.
Yeah.
And
enjoy it, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's such a lie that has been propagated everywhere, that being a Christian is boring, this and that, you know. And I really think part of that, in a way, is almost demonic.
Well, I think, not to start a whole other subject, but I think a lot of that is the imitation. People imitating something that they see other Christians do. That's not a good tree. That's a bad tree trying to disguise its fruit under something good. And until you become good, until you let the Father make you good, all you have is imitating fruit. It's not good fruit. And until you have that, you will not enjoy. Because I've lived that for so many years. I wanted to be good. It's like, well, let's get to it. I want to be good. I can't be good. And until I had this hunger for Christ, that just won't go away, which I'm glad it doesn't. I've really found joy in it, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't have enough self-control to be good. Yeah. I don't have enough self-discipline. I am not self-disciplined. It's what got me to the point where I really just enjoy my walk with Christ, and not just I enjoy my walk with Christ. I love these conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we have them all the time. We have them at the shop. We have them with the other guys. We have them go out like today with Raymond in a restaurant. Some of it was business. Most of it was something like this. It's a lot of fun. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah. And being good can be fun.
It can be.
No, it's like all culture has put a preface in order to have fun, you gotta do bad.
Yeah. It's a song like that.
And it's not that way
No.
at all. Being a Christian is fun. I'm
It
like,
can be.
and getting the gifts is fun too. Because my horizons have expanded so much, and I'm called to be a watchman. And to explain that, I would need a time. But I get to see a whole spectrum of things, and it's something that's very unique because my mom tends more towards that way too, and me, I'm more like you. I feel things. My mom actually sees things.
Gotcha. That'd be
No.
interesting.
No, and she can walk into your home, and if there's an angel in your home, she can tell you where that angel is.
So we actually had Kathy. She would see things, and it would kind of appear.
Yeah.
That is very interesting. To me, it was. I am very new at a lot of this, and yeah. So that's cool. That's
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm like, well, I would like to do that, but a part of me is kind of glad I don't because, she sees angels, but she's also seeing demons too.
Yeah, I think you see one, you see the other, huh?
Yep, and so she had a teacher in college that was a lesbian, and she grew up strict Baptist, did not believe in the stuff at all. And then she went to a place called College Park in Indianapolis, and they're all very spirit filled. And she got prayed over, and then she would send to class, and she's hiding in her book. And then she looks up and she sees this thing, and it's sitting on her shoulder, and the spirit is literally twisted into her. And she's like, I've never seen something that ugly in my life. No, and I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of glad I don't see that.
Some
So
of the stuff's better left alone.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's probably why. Like I said, I'm new at it. I don't know exactly how it works, but it seems to me that there's a good chance that whatever we are equipped with is we're wholly equipped for the way we sense or see or whatever. So
Yeah.
your mom is probably wholly equipped to be able to see and handle that.
yeah,
And like for me, I am still learning what to do, how to handle things that I feel, because there's a lot of times moods I feel more than anything. And what to do with them or how to handle them and how to use them really for his glory is something that I'm curious about, but I'm learning into it, and it's part of the joy of life.
Cool, awesome. Well, thank you for joining me for this podcast episode, and I look forward to several more in the future.
Man, this was a great time. Thank you, Nolan.
Cool, awesome. And with that, we'll say bye.